The Mood Tracker series rolls on tonight, and we got to head to Knoxville, and we got to talk about Tennessee. Now, anytime I talk about Tennessee, as you know, in good faith, I go in the control room where Director Colin is patiently waiting on the show to begin, and I say, Colin, I'm talking about Tennessee tonight. What should I say? And so I told Director Colin, who some of you still don't think is real. So if you are part of that crew, just imagine me talking to myself in the control room. And I said, Director Colin, we're talking about Tennessee, Mood Tracker tonight. You're my Tennessee authority. What do we think? Here's what Colin had to say, and then you can match it with what you think about Tennessee. Colin's mood was, we've been here before, but that sounds negative. He had a positive ending to the tone. He said, I like Josh Heupel. I like Mike White, the athletic director there. He said, yes, we've got questions about defense, depth, and whatnot, but that couldn't really be answered last year given the attrition. More on that in a second. But he did say it's a much more fun program to follow. There's a lot more energy around the program. And what he said, and I remember he's given me this quote a couple of times now, we already sucked. That's why we had to get a new coaching staff in here. If you're going to suck, at least suck in a much more entertaining manner. No one wants to suck and lose 18-6, okay? 38-35 is a little bit different. And so I'm not saying Tennessee sucked last year, far from that, but it's a much more entertaining style. At least outsiders are much more likely to watch Tennessee now. Here is my mood tracker on Tennessee. The Tennessee fan base, or the mood tracker on the Tennessee fan base, I think could best be described as ready for the twist. So if you take a can of soda or a bottle of soda and you shake that thing up, one of two things is about to happen. Either when you twist that top off, it's going to go all over the place, or it's going to, because you find out you got flat soda in your hand. Now, there's a lot of anticipation, and there's a lot of guarded excitement around the Tennessee program right now. That's exactly how I'd feel. You know, if I lived in Diana, Tennessee, right off 65, underrated rail town there in Diana. If I lived in Diana, Tennessee, and I was a Tennessee fan, I'd feel that way. That's exactly how I'd feel. But I wouldn't have 100% confidence on what's going to happen if/when we twist that top off. We're 1 year in. We're right around 1 year since Josh Heupel got hired and Mike White, the athletic director's there. Even in the midst of a rebuild, we don't know what their version of Tennessee fully is going to look like. We have some good sneak previews as to what it's going to look like. I'm a big believer they overachieved in 2021. To be perfectly clear, you know, they had 2 or 3 more close losses, but they won 7 games. And I really think for proper context, we need to go back. Like on Vols 24/7, those guys have done a really good job of doing sort of a 1-year checkup on the program. And they talked about where they were this time last year and then going into spring and coming out of spring. I think some people have forgotten this, though. I think there's a lot of amnesia about how bad this program looked. And they had a ton of attrition already. They were making the move, and the roster was not good. And not only is the roster not good, they then lost a lot of pieces on that roster. And not only did they lose a lot of pieces, you're also talking about bringing in a style and just a philosophy that in a lot of ways is a 180-degree turn from what they had been doing. That spells disaster in the SEC most of the time. And it really doesn't set you up for success no matter what level of football you're playing most of the time. And yet they found a way last year. And even in some of the games they lost, the Pitt game was an instant classic. They went back and forth on that one. The Ole Miss game, which we were at, kind of gets overshadowed because of the trash on the field at the end and whatnot. Officiating was abhorrent that night. One of the biggest calls for change that I think I've ever seen in my time watching college football. And unfortunately, it got overshadowed because of the ending. But those were close games. They played Bama close to the half. The Georgia game, the Alabama game, those they're not expected to compete in. But they got to the Music City Bowl. That's a last-minute kind of game back and forth. So you've got 7 wins versus 10 wins, and there being a bounce of the ball's difference, really, and a one-possession difference in a lot of those games. My point is, this was not any kind of underachievement. This was an overachievement to me in year 1. We're seeing progression offensively. That alone is one of the most refreshing things to say about Tennessee football. Think about the last time, if you're a Tennessee Volunteer fan, that you could lay your head on your pillow at night and know that even amidst all the uncertainty elsewhere in the program, and we still got the whole NCAA thing out there, we don't know how that's going to pan out, but at least I know one thing. I know my quarterback's in good hands tonight, and I know my offense is in good hands tonight, and I know that we are in the process of putting a product on the field that skill, perimeter talent, and quarterbacks are going to want to come and play for. It's been a long time since any of us, myself included, have been able to say that. But there are other positives to consider here. Tennessee's a long way from a finished product, but there are other positives to consider. They lost a lot to the portal, but they also got a lot out of the portal last year, and virtually every one of those guys contributed. Now, some of that was out of necessity, but it also signifies they did a heck of a job evaluating guys in the portal versus their needs, and they got some really good pieces that helped them immediately. How are they going to do moving forward in the portal? Is that how they're going to strike the balance? You know, a lot of different administrations, a lot of different staffs have their own idea about how to balance the amount we lean on high school ranks versus the amount we lean on the portal. It's still a little bit too early to know how Josh Heupel and Tennessee view that. For that matter, it's still a little bit early to know how anybody views that. But they were really aggressive in the summer recruiting stretch. They've, I think, got the number 15 class. They're in the mid-teens right now as it relates to the 2022 cycle. But it is my belief when we specifically look at talent acquisition, whether through high school recruiting or the portal, I think it is a lie when people tell you Tennessee is not capable of recruiting like they used to. And this is not even it's not even a commentary on the potential of Josh Heupel at Tennessee. This is just me talking about Tennessee. I've always felt this way. To me, the secret is not asking how much in-state talent in the state of Tennessee is there. I think Tennessee's a whole lot more likely to pull talent out of Charlotte than Memphis, is what I'm telling you, because of the shape of the state and because of how sheer geographical dynamics work. The way I've always felt it's more proper to gauge Tennessee is drawing a 6-hour radius around the campus and understanding that that includes North Georgia, North Alabama, most all of Tennessee. You get into Ohio, you get into the Virginia area, the Carolinas. There is a ton of talent in that 6-hour radius. If you've got the right environment and right staff and culture on campus, it will be attractive. Having a good offense helps out a whole lot there. If you take that part A and then you combine it with a part B of really thorough evaluation processes for not only leveraging the transfer portal to get raw talent out of it, but getting the right kind of talent that fits your scheme and guys that can be plug and plays, you can put a winning product on the field. To be clear, when I say winning product, I mean you can compete for the SEC championship at Tennessee. Not this year necessarily. You can surprise me. Feel free to do so. There is no reason why Tennessee has to resign themselves to taking a back seat. There are teams in the SEC that, if we're real with ourselves, kind of have to do that until further notice. Tennessee's not one of them. Now, just because Tennessee hasn't been something for a long time doesn't mean the program lost the capability to be that. I have never believed that. And so it's going to be real fun because this is a program, if you were putting a spotlight on a program in the Southeastern Conference this spring, I don't know, outside of Florida, because there's just a whole bunch of new down there, I don't know that there's going to be a more fun/interesting program to watch than Tennessee, because there's so many different ways that this can still go. And I was over on the Vols 24/7 board today, and I was asking, what's your mood right now? And a lot of those guys and girls over there were saying the same thing. There's optimism, but none of them are so ignorant to believe, well, we're out of the woods. 7 wins last year will equal 10 wins this year, will equal SEC championship or bust in 2023. No one's talking like that. This is Tennessee. They've learned the lessons over and over and over again. So that's one of the more jaded fan bases. So it's very hard. It is very hard to get them fired up. Some of them are, but they're going about it the right way. They understand, let's be careful. Okay, we see that the top layer of the water here is frozen. There's a layer of ice. We don't know how thick that layer is. So we're not going to sprint across it. We're going to tiptoe across it. They're tiptoeing across it right now. Actually, maybe instead of soda bottles, the better metaphor would have been ice. Not a lot of that in Tennessee, though. So that's the mood tracker there.